The bloodless bodies, the unanswered question. Why are thousands of cows found dead with no blood, and surgical cuts so precise they look like laser work? It's a question that haunts farmers, scientists, and investigators around the world. A chilling mystery unfolds across the vast ranches of America and the remote plains of South America. Cattle mutilations, bodies discovered overnight. No blood, no struggle, no clues, just silence. No tracks in the dirt, no tire marks, no signs of predators or human trespassers. How is this possible? The scene is like something out of a nightmare. A dead cow, perfectly dissected, skin peeled back, organs missing. Yet the ground around is pristine. Farmers find them with throats slashed, eyes and tongues removed, but not a single drop of blood stains the grass. No nearby carcasses to explain scavenging. No evidence left behind. The wounds are clean, precise, as if done by a skilled surgeon. But no doctor, no vet, no human could operate in the dark, in the middle of nowhere, and leave no trace. And this is not a rare event. Thousands of these mutilations have been reported since the late 1960s. They are no ordinary animal deaths. They are strange, terrifying, and utterly baffling. A farmer in Colorado recalls the first time he discovered one of these horrors. I walked out at dawn to check the herd. One cow was gone. Then I found it lying in the field, missing its tongue and eyeballs. No blood anywhere. I felt chills run down my spine. What could have done this? No animal, no person. Nothing made sense. Local police arrived, baffled. Veterinarians examined the body and confirmed the precision of the cuts. News spread fast. People were afraid. This was not just a freak accident. It was a phenomenon. Scientists tried to explain. Could it be disease? No. Could it be natural predators? No. Could it be cults or pranksters? Some believed so, but the evidence didn't add up. Then came the whispers. Whispers of UFOs, alien involvement, secret government experiments. Reports started pouring in from all over the Americas. From Texas to Argentina, ranchers found mutilated cattle with the same mysterious traits. No blood, no struggle, no evidence, only perfectly carved bodies. The cuts seemed almost surgical, precise, and sometimes burned, and the organs taken were always specific. Eyes, tongues, reproductive organs, sometimes the anus. Why those parts? Nobody knew. But there was more. Some witnesses reported strange lights hovering over their ranches at night, unexplained noises, objects in the sky moving faster than any plane or helicopter. One retired sheriff said in an interview, "I saw a glowing object over my fields at night. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen. When I checked the next morning, one of my cows was mutilated." Government agencies were alerted. The FBI investigated some cases, but official statements remained vague. Documents were classified or disappeared. Why would the government hide something so bizarre? Some researchers believe the phenomenon is linked to extraterrestrial activity. Others claim it's a secret military operation. A few even suspect it's a combination of both. What if these mutilations are not random? What if they are a form of communication, or an experiment, or a warning? The question remains, are these bloodless deaths the work of nature, man, or something else entirely? Is there an intelligence behind these mutilations? Something not of this world? Tonight, when the ranchers close their eyes, the fear returns. The fear that the silence in the fields hides something deadly, something watching, waiting. This is not just an old wives' tale or a myth. It is a chilling reality, one that challenges everything we know about the world. So, Why are thousands of cows found dead without a drop of blood? Why are their bodies cut with surgical precision? Who or what is behind it? The truth is still out there, and it may be closer than we think. Are you ready to dig deeper? This is only the beginning. In the next parts, we will uncover real cases, government documents, witness testimonies, and theories. We will explore the darkest corners of this mystery, because the answers could change everything. The first mutilations. When did the mystery begin? Colorado. That's when it began. A strange, brutal mystery that would ignite fear, speculation, and cover-ups for decades to come. The victim? A horse named Snippy. The headlines would say dead, but what was found defied explanation. October 1967, Alamosa, Colorado. A quiet, remote town with ranches, cattle, and long, dusty roads. Nothing unusual, until one morning when a local woman named Nellie Lewis went out to check on her brother's 3-year-old horse. The horse hadn't come back the night before. She walked the field. Then she stopped. Then she screamed. What she saw that morning would become one of the most bizarre unsolved cases in American history. Her horse, named Snippy, lay on the ground lifeless, mutilated, and stripped of all flesh from the neck up. No head, only white bleached bone, clean and dry, as if burned, as if dissected, as if something non-human had removed the entire face and flesh with surgical precision. But the horror didn't end there. There was no blood, not on the ground, not on the body, nowhere. Even stranger, there were no footprints around the body, no tire tracks, no signs of animal attack, no signs of humans. The ground was completely untouched except for the horse's remains. Some reported a strong chemical smell in the air, and a strange scorched ring in the dirt, several feet wide, near where Snippy was found. Locals were terrified. The Lewis family was stunned. The local sheriff was baffled, and the story spread fast. The press got involved. Newspapers printed it nationwide. Horse mutilation mystifies Colorado town. Some blamed the satanic cult. Others whispered about aliens. Then the federal government stepped in. The FBI reportedly sent agents to investigate. Rumors began to swirl about silent helicopters in the sky. Others claimed to see strange aircraft flying low in the area that same week. One farmer swore he saw a glowing orb hovering over his fields right before his cows panicked and ran wild through the night. But after all the noise, something strange happened. Silence. The FBI never released any official findings. No documents were made public. No suspects were ever named. No explanation was ever given. Then, the most chilling twist of all. The government file on Snippy vanished. Gone. No record in the National Archives. No trace in FBI logs. A case that had gained national attention simply erased. But people remembered. Locals still talk about that morning. And they talk about what happened after. Because Snippy wasn't the last. Not even close. Over the next few years, cattle mutilations exploded across the Midwest. Cows, sheep, horses all found dead under identical circumstances. Organs removed, eyes taken, reproductive systems gone, and not a single drop of blood. Same wounds, same pattern, same eerie silence from officials. Veterinarians were brought in to examine the bodies. Their conclusions: these wounds appear to be made with high heat, not a blade. No scavenger could do this, not consistent with any known predator. So, what or who was doing this? If it wasn't humans, and it wasn't animals, then what was it? Many began pointing to the skies. UFO sightings were increasing in the late 1960s. Colorado, New Mexico, Wyoming all reported an uptick in unidentified flying objects, strange lights, metallic crafts, silent movements, and always the same eerie pattern. A sighting one night, a mutilated animal the next morning. Then came a name, Project Grudge, an early U.S. Air Force investigation into UFO activity. What few people knew at the time was that the government was quietly collecting data on these animal mutilations. And the case of Snippy, it was included. That means the government did take it seriously. And yet it was never spoken of again. Why? Why would the U.S. government hide this information? Why would they investigate it then erase all traces? Why go silent? Some researchers believe the answer is simple. Because they were afraid of what they found. Because Snippy's death was not an isolated case. Because it was the beginning of something they couldn't control. Snippy's mutilation was the spark, the test, or maybe the warning. In the years that followed, a pattern emerged. Animals were being mutilated along specific ley lines, near military bases, and during periods of heightened UFO activity. Coincidence or coordination? People began forming theories. Some believed aliens were conducting biological experiments, testing Earth's animals to understand life here, or worse, preparing for something. Others believed the military was involved, that black-budget projects were testing advanced surgical devices, cloaking technology, and biological weapons, and the animals, just test subjects. Then there's the hybrid theory, the most terrifying of all, that humans and extraterrestrials are working together, that there's an exchange happening in the dark, that mutilated cattle are just a byproduct of something far bigger and far more dangerous. So we return to Snippy, a simple horse, living on a quiet ranch in Colorado, dead in the most unnatural way imaginable. And yet Snippy became the first chapter in a global phenomenon, the first mutilation to gain media attention, the first file to be erased, and the first question that no one dared to answer. What really happened that night in 1967? Was it a message, a mistake, or a mission? And if they started with animals, who or what comes next? The mutilation mystery did not die with Snippy. In fact, it was just being born. And whatever force was behind it was only getting started. Next time, we uncover the global map of mutilations from the U.S. to South America. Because Snippy was only the first. There are thousands more, and they all follow the same script. But the ending? We're still waiting for that. Thousands of cases, death spreads across the map. What if Snippy wasn't the only one? What if it wasn't just Colorado? What if the mutilations were happening everywhere? They are, and they have been for decades. From the rolling plains of Montana, to the freezing stretches of Alberta, to the windswept grasslands of Argentina, a pattern has emerged, a terrifying, silent epidemic. The same wounds, the same bloodless deaths, the same eerie precision, and no answers. Let's look at the numbers. More than 10,000 mutilated animals have been reported in the last 50 years. That's just the official count. Many farmers never report. Others are told to stay quiet, and some are too scared to speak. But the reports that are documented, they form a map. A chilling map of mutilation, a global trail of death. United States, thousands of cases, especially concentrated in New Mexico, Colorado, Texas, Utah, Montana, and Nebraska. Farm country, open spaces, places where no one is watching, or maybe where something is watching. Canada, dozens of cases in Alberta and Saskatchewan. In 1975, over 30 cattle were found dead in Alberta alone. Same signs, precise cuts, missing eyes, tongues, genitals. No blood, no predators, no logic. Argentina. Between 2002 and 2005, a wave of mutilations struck the Pampas region. Hundreds of cows, identical wounds. Veterinary reports confirmed the organs were removed as if by laser. The Argentine government even launched an official investigation. Their conclusion: unexplained, possibly non-human intervention. Brazil, Chile, Mexico all have reported similar cases. Same types of animals, same organ removal, same total lack of blood. In 2004, Brazilian news outlets reported a farmer discovering 8 mutilated cows overnight. The police were baffled. The rancher claimed he saw a silent black disc over his property just hours before. Let's break down what they all have in common. The absence of blood, completely dry carcasses, the specific organs removed, always soft tissues, eyes, tongues, genitals, reproductive systems, rectums. The precision of the incisions, no tearing, no mess, just clean, perfect cuts. The lack of tracks, no signs of humans, animals, or machines nearby. The pattern, sightings of strange lights or UFO softened the night before. This isn't coincidence. This is calculated. Now, let's get technical. Veterinary pathologists have examined dozens of mutilated animals. Their findings: shocking. Some incisions appear cauterized as if made by intense heat. Others are so exact, so refined, they would require advanced surgical equipment. But here's the twist. Many of these cases happened in the 1970s and 80s before such tools even existed in veterinary science. How? Who had that technology? And why use it on cows? In one 1979 report from the University of Wyoming, we observed removal of the mandible, lower jaw, tongue, and eyes with such surgical precision that it could not have been performed in the field without considerable expertise and equipment. This wasn't the work of coyotes, or teenage pranksters, or cots. This was something else, something more advanced. Then came the photos and the videos. Farmers began documenting everything. Thousands of photos began surfacing showing the same chilling signs. Drone footage captured fresh carcasses with no disturbance to the surrounding ground. Thermal cameras recorded unidentified heat signatures near mutilation sites, and then nothing. Even the FBI took notice. In 1979, the FBI launched an official investigation into cattle mutilations. The lead agent at the time, Kenneth Rommel, spent months collecting data. The report, over 300 pages long. What did it say? Unexplained, no suspects, no clear motive, no cause identified. Then, once again, silence. So, what are we looking at? Coincidence, mass hysteria, or a long-term, global phenomenon? Some believe it's a covert military experiment, using animals as test subjects for chemical or biological research. Others believe it's something extraterrestrial, non-human entities conducting biological studies. Still others think it's something spiritual, even demonic. But here's the terrifying part. No one has ever been caught. Not once. Not in 50 years. Not in over 10,000 cases. No arrests, no convictions, no suspects. How can that be? How can something so widespread, so persistent, leave no trace? Unless it's not something we can catch. Let's talk about timing. Most mutilations occur at night. Many are discovered just before dawn, as if the work is done quickly, quietly, in darkness. In some cases, the rancher had checked on the herd just hours before. All normal. Then, sunrise and death. One rancher in Nebraska said, "It's like they dropped it from the sky. No footprints, no tire marks, nothing. Just a dead cow with no face." Another, in Alberta, "I don't care what they say, this wasn't a wolf. This was surgical. Like someone was trying to learn something." Satellite data has shown unusual electromagnetic activity in areas with high mutilation reports. Animals on nearby farms often act anxious or agitated the night before. Dogs howl, horses refuse to eat, birds vanish. Something happens. But what? If this were natural, wouldn't we have proof by now? If this were human, wouldn't someone have slipped? But decade after decade, the mystery deepens, and the numbers grow. Look at the map. Zoom out. From a single horse in Colorado to thousands of mutilated animals across 2 continents. The pattern is undeniable, but the cause, still hidden. One thing is clear. This isn't isolated. It's organized, systematic, intelligent. Whoever or whatever is behind this, they are not done. And if we don't understand it, we can't stop it. In the next part, we'll examine one of the most terrifying questions of all. Why is there never any blood? Because it's not just about the cuts. It's about the complete removal of something vital, and the strange, perfect silence it leaves behind. No blood, no tracks, a killer without a trace. Where is the blood? Where are the tracks? Where is the killer? These are the questions that haunt every investigator who stood beside a mutilated cow in the dead of morning. Thousands of cases, same signs, same horror, but always the same absence. No blood, no footprints, no noise, no clue. How can a living, breathing 1,200-pound animal be killed, dissected, and left with surgical wounds, without leaving a single drop of blood on the ground? It's not just strange. It's impossible, unless something unnatural is happening, something outside the rules of nature, of logic, of science. Let's go back to Colorado. The year is 1975. A rancher in the San Luis Valley wakes up before dawn. He walks the fence line, checks the cattle. Everything looks fine. He returns home, has breakfast. 2 hours later, he goes back out and finds one of his cows lying motionless, only 30 meters from where he had stood earlier. Dead, eyes removed, tongue gone, reproductive organs missing. No blood, no noise, no signs of a struggle. The grass is undisturbed. The dirt is smooth. Not a single hoof print near the body. How did a 1,000-pound cow get killed, drained, and mutilated in daylight and silence without anyone noticing? This wasn't an isolated event. Case after case, year after year, the pattern repeats. And so does the impossible. No blood. Normally, when an animal dies, especially from trauma, the area is soaked. Arteries rupture, tissues bleed. The ground tells the story. But in mutilation cases, nothing. Organs are missing, but the scene is clean, as if the blood had never existed, or was removed by something capable of total extraction, down to the last drop. How? How do you remove every drop of blood from an animal without opening major veins, without creating chaos, without mess? In 2001, a veterinary report from Argentina studied a mutilated cow found on a remote farm. The report read, "The body shows zero signs of scavenger activity. The incisions are linear, cauterized. Blood is absent not only at the site but within the veins themselves. The animal appears to have been drained entirely without evidence of hemorrhage." That's not biology. That's technology. Then there's the second question. Where are the tracks? A cow doesn't die in the middle of a field without someone or something getting close to it. But time and time again, ranchers, police, and scientists find the same thing. No human tracks, no predator paw prints, no tire marks, not even hoof prints from the animal itself. It's as if the cow was dropped from the sky. In 1976, in New Mexico, a local sheriff described what he found at the scene. The ground around the carcass was soft. It had rained the night before. If anything had walked out there, it would have left prints, but there was nothing, just the cow and the cuts, and that smell like burnt metal. That smell has come up in multiple reports. Burnt ozone, scorched chemicals, a faint hum in the air, as if some kind of advanced tool had been used. Not a knife, not claws. Something else? Many ranchers have begun installing cameras, thermal sensors, motion detectors, but the mutilations continue with no footage, no alarm triggers, no recordings. Whatever is doing this moves faster than our technology can see, or it's avoiding it altogether, deliberately, intelligently. That leads to a terrifying thought. We are not in control. Something is operating around us, among us, and we can't see it. We can't detect it. We can't stop it. Let's break down the science. For blood to disappear completely, one of three things must occur. Total cauterization during incision. Extreme heat seals vessels immediately. Immediate vacuum extraction, pulling blood out rapidly, leaving no spray or leak. Advanced molecular manipulation, disintegration, teleportation, or unknown method. None of these are found in natural predators. None of these are used by farmers, and some of them don't even exist in our known medical technology. Yet the wounds match these profiles. The mutilations aren't messy. They're clinical, not wild, precise. They don't suggest feeding. They suggest harvesting. Why no tracks? Some believe helicopters or drones are involved, but those make noise, and many events happen in total silence. Others believe the animals are being abducted, lifted into the sky, mutilated elsewhere, and returned. That would explain the lack of blood, and the lack of tracks, and the impossibility. But that raises another question. Why return the body at all? Why not make it vanish? Why leave it where someone will find it? Some say it's part of the message, a calling card, a warning. If this were just nature, we'd have an explanation. If this were just humans, someone would have slipped. But after 10,000 plus cases, still no suspect, still no footprints, still no trace. The most disturbing cases often include electronic interference. Watches stop, phones glitch, radios go silent, as if some electromagnetic force surrounds the site, a kind of field that bends the rules of physics and of perception. Some witnesses report hearing nothing at all, a kind of forced silence. Others say time felt distorted, slowed down, or even stopped. Is it a coincidence that these mutilations often happen near military airspaces, or along magnetic ley lines, or beneath well-known UFO sighting hotspots? The evidence is stacking up, but no one is talking. No government, no military, no agency. Science has tried to offer answers. Predators? No. Insects? No. Disease doesn't cause incisions. Weather doesn't remove organs. Scavengers don't cauterize tissue. Nothing fits. And nothing explains the complete absence of blood, or noise, or tracks. That leaves us with two chilling options. A technology so advanced, it's beyond our understanding. A presence so hidden, it chooses what we're allowed to know. Whatever it is, it doesn't want to be found, but it wants us to know it's there. That's why it leaves the body behind. Clean, bloodless, silent. Is this a test? A message? a harvest, or something else. The mutilations aren't random. They're targeted, coordinated, and spreading. And if no one can stop it, what happens next? In the next part, we'll look at the people who have seen these events firsthand. The farmers, the sheriffs, the pilots, the ones who witnessed lights in the sky moments before the bloodless bodies appeared. Because, sometimes, the truth isn't buried in science. It's whispered by those who saw what they weren't supposed to see. Witnesses in the dark, they saw UFOs in the sky. What if someone saw it happen? What if someone looked up and saw the unthinkable? Not just dead cows, not just bloodless bodies, but something in the sky, glowing, silent, watching, and then gone. Over the years, thousands of mutilation cases were documented, but in some, someone was awake, someone saw, and what they saw changed everything. Let's start in Montana. June 2003. A rancher named Travis Cole was checking on his cattle during a power outage. It was nearly 2 o'clock a.m. No moon, total silence. And then the sky lit up. Not lightning, not stars, but a pulsing white light floating above his field. He stared, frozen. The light hovered for about 30 seconds, then in an instant vanished. Gone, like it had blinked out of reality. The next morning, one of his cows was found dead, its tongue removed, eyes gone, no blood, no tracks. He filed a report. He spoke with local authorities. But a week later, he stopped talking. When asked again, he only said, "They told me to let it go, that I saw nothing, but I know what I saw." Stories like Travis's are everywhere. Too many to ignore, too detailed to dismiss, and too similar to be coincidence. New Mexico, 1997. Sheriff Deputy Mark Rojas was responding to a call about trespassers on a ranch. As he drove toward the property, he noticed something strange in the sky. A dark, triangular shape, completely still. Then it began to move. No sound, no trail, just a slow, gliding drift across the field. Then poof, it zipped away at impossible speed. Moments later, he reached the ranch. 2 cows mutilated, one still warm. He filed his report, his dashcam footage, confiscated the next morning by men in black suits. He never saw it again. Another deputy, off record, said this: "The higher-ups told us not to talk to media, that it was a weather balloon accident, but that wasn't no balloon. That thing moved like it was alive. What are they seeing? And why does someone not want them talking?" Let's look at the patterns. In over 400 documented cattle mutilation cases since 1970, over 100 include UFO sightings within 24 hours of the event. That's not speculation. That's in the reports. These sightings are consistent. Silent, hovering crafts. Pulsing lights, often red, white, or orange. Sudden vertical ascents. Disc-shaped, triangular, or orb-like bodies. Disappearances at inhuman speeds. And in many of these events, animals were mutilated within the next 12 hours. Same wounds, same bloodless bodies, same fear. Now, consider this. In 2014, a drone operator in Nebraska was using night vision to monitor his fields. He wasn't hunting UFOs. He was guarding against thieves. But at 3:17 a.m., he captured something unexpected. A metallic sphere, floating 100 feet above a pasture. It hovered, then released a faint beam of light toward the ground. 10 seconds later, gone. The next morning, a mutilated steer. Footage. He posted a clip online. 2 days later, the video was removed, and his account permanently banned. He received a call from an unknown agency asking about the footage. They told him it was classified airspace data. Wait, what? A civilian's drone captured a flying object over private land. And that's classified. It's not the only time this happened. Multiple ranchers and amateur sky watchers have reported being visited by military officers after sightings, having footage erased, being told to stay quiet for national security. And the scariest part, some believe the witnesses are being watched. One case from 1993 in Oregon involved a farmer who installed trail cams after losing 3 cows in 1 week. On the 4th night, the camera captured a strange orb. Next morning, mutilated calf. 2 days later, all the cameras were gone. No break-in, no footprints, just gone, as if someone knew. So, let's connect the dots. Mutilations, lights in the sky, witnesses silenced, evidence erased. Still think it's just wild animals? Pilots have seen them too. In 1981, commercial pilot James Holt was flying over rural Texas when he spotted what he described as a metallic oval, hovering at 30,000 feet. No radio interference, no collision alert, just the object, sitting there, then gone. He reported it to air traffic control. They said, quote, "Nothing on radar. You saw a cloud." That same week, freeing mutilated cattle in a nearby ranch, same organ removal, same bloodless scene. Are we to believe trained pilots, sheriffs, and ranchers are all hallucinating? All imagining the same crafts, all reporting the same light, the same silence, the same consequences? Or are they all seeing the same thing, and someone doesn't want them talking? In 2007, a whistleblower, a former Air Force technician, came forward anonymously. He claimed that during his time stationed in Nevada, he monitored aerial phenomena over restricted airspace. He was part of a classified program. What he said was chilling. We tracked objects that could stop, accelerate, and change direction instantly, and sometimes, within 24 hours of those events, ranchers nearby would report dead cattle, same wounds, no blood, no prints. He ended the interview with this: "These aren't isolated events. This is part of a pattern, a system. But the public isn't ready." Not ready for what? The idea that we're being observed, that someone or something is studying us, that the mutilations are part of a harvest, or worse, an experiment. And the witnesses, they're warning us, but they're being silenced, one by one. So, if you saw something in the sky, would you speak up? Would you risk it? Would you tell the world? Because some have, and now they're gone. In the next part, we dive deeper into what the government really knows. From Project Blue Book to declassified UFO programs, we reveal what officials have discovered and what they've hidden. Because once the military got involved, this stopped being just a mystery. It became a cover-up. Project Grudge and Blue Book. What did the government discover? What if the government already knows? What if they've known for decades? And what if they've been hiding it? The mutilated cows, the strange lights in the sky, the missing blood, the silent nights, the vanished witnesses. These are not just stories passed between farmers. They're in government files, buried, classified, forgotten on purpose. Let's rewind the clock back to the late 1940s. The war is over. The Cold War is beginning, and something strange is happening in the skies above America. Unexplained objects, metallic discs, flashing lights, fast, silent, uncatchable. The U.S. government panics. They need answers. 1949. Project Grudge. The U.S. Air Force's first official program to investigate unidentified flying objects. Its goal: to collect, analyze, and debunk all UFO reports. Why? Because fear was spreading. Pilots were seeing things, civilians were reporting sightings, and the military needed control. But Project Grudge found more than it wanted to. Strange flight patterns, impossible speeds, radar returns with no aircraft in the sky, pilots reporting being chased by lights, and then the first quiet mentions of animal mutilations. Buried deep in early Grudge memos were odd reports from rural areas, unusual livestock deaths, organs removed with precision, no blood, no predators found, no explanation, no follow-up, just silence. Then came something bigger. 1952, Project Blue Book, the most famous and most controversial UFO investigation in U.S. history. Led by the Air Force. Publicly, it was a scientific analysis of unexplained aerial sightings. Privately, it was something else. From 1952 to 1969, over 12,000 UFO cases were investigated under Blue Book. Hundreds were unexplained. Dozens involved objects witnessed by trained military personnel, and hidden among them, reports of cattle mutilations. Not many, just a few, but enough to raise questions. One 1964 entry reads, "Strange aerial light seen hovering over ranch in New Mexico, 48 hours later, for cattle found mutilated, no blood, local sheriff disturbed by scene, no signs of scavenger activity." The Blue Book team investigated. They took photos, collected witness testimonies, then marked the file. No further action required. Case closed. Why? Why investigate something so disturbing and then ignore it? Were they afraid of the truth? Or were they told to stop? In 1969, Project Blue Book was shut down. Official reason: no threat to national security. But insiders tell a different story. Former Blue Book scientific consultant Dr. J. Allen Hynek, once a skeptic, later said, "There was far more going on than the public was ever allowed to see. Some cases were truly unexplainable. I believe we were being visited. And I believe the Air Force knew it. And the mutilation cases, they didn't disappear. They increased, especially through the 1970s. Just after Blue Book closed. Coincidence? Let's talk documents. In the early 2000s, through the Freedom of Information Act, researchers obtained declassified memos. Memos from the FBI, the Air Force, even the Department of Energy. And buried inside, mentions of animal excision phenomena, another word for mutilations. One 1976 memo from the FBI reads, "Unusual animal deaths continue in rural areas of Colorado and New Mexico. Tissue analysis suggests high heat instrument usage. No known aircraft or military involvement confirmed. Recommend limited public disclosure." Limited public disclosure. That means, don't let people know. But why? Why would the government hide this? Why suppress mutilation reports? Why erase testimonies? Some believe the answer is fear. Fear that we're not alone. Fear that something is happening beyond human control, and that revealing it would collapse public trust. Others think it's darker, that the government knows who is responsible, and they're allowing it, or worse, working with it. There's a reason why these investigations were hidden, because the conclusions were not comforting. They didn't find hoaxers. They didn't find predators. They found silence, confusion, and impossibility. And here's where it gets even stranger. In 2017, the Pentagon confirmed the existence of a secret program, ATIP, the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. It ran from 2007 to 2012. Its purpose: study unidentified aerial phenomena. Yes, UFOs. Millions in funding. High-level military access. And you know what they found? Craft displaying flight capabilities beyond known human technology. Objects performing instantaneous acceleration and silent hovering. Biological effects on witnesses, including radiation exposure and neurological symptoms. Let that sink in. The government was still investigating UFOs in the 21st century. And guess what else? Some leaked ATIP documents included sections on cattle mutilations. Why? Because the biological signatures found in the animals matched the energy readings from some of the craft. Could that be a coincidence? Or proof of a connection? We've had 3 generations of government UFO programs. Project Grudge Silence and Denial. Project Blue Book Limited Admission. Massive Suppression. ATIP Secret Research. Limited Release. And all 3 had some contact directly or indirectly with the mutilation phenomenon. So ask yourself, if it was just coyotes, if it was just pranksters, why would the U.S. military care? Why classify the files? Why shut down investigations? The answer may be too big, too terrifying, too alien. It's not just what the government knows, it's what they fear. They fear we'll ask, why are thousands of animals being harvested? Why are some mutilation sites surrounded by electromagnetic interference? Why do UFOs always come first and the mutilated bodies come later? Why do witnesses get silenced? And why is no one held accountable? They fear we'll start connecting the dots. And when we do, the picture is horrifying. Next time, we'll go further. We'll look into the ancient alien hypothesis and explore whether this phenomenon goes back thousands of years. Because maybe this didn't start with Project Grudge. Maybe it started long before humans walked upright. The laser-cut theory incisions no knife could make. How do you cut flesh without a scalpel? How do you remove organs without a trace? How do you slice with absolute precision in the middle of a field at night without tools? That's the mystery at the center of animal mutilations. Not just the missing blood, not just the missing organs, but the way they're removed. Clean, smooth, surgical, almost clinical, too precise for predators, too advanced for pranksters, too strange for science. We've seen the photos, eyewitnesses, veterinary reports, declassified government memos, and they all say the same thing. The cuts are too perfect. Let's start with veterinarians, the professionals who understand animal anatomy, the ones who perform surgeries, who know what a scalpel can and cannot do. And their verdict, shocking. Dr. Howard Burgess, a veterinarian from New Mexico, examined a mutilated cow in 1975. There's no tearing, no hesitation marks. These aren't blade cuts. The skin appears to have been cauterized at the moment of incision like it was sliced by intense heat. He paused. We don't have that kind of technology. Not in 1975. Not in a field. Not at 2:00 a.m. Dr. John Altshuler, a pathologist, examined tissue from multiple mutilated animals. The edges were burned, but the surrounding tissue wasn't charred. That kind of precision, heat control is extremely rare. Even modern surgical lasers struggle with that. He emphasized, this isn't a knife. It's not natural. It's something else. But here's the terrifying part. Some of these cuts were found as early as the 1960s. Back when laser surgery barely existed. Back when even hospitals had no such tools. And yet, cattle across North America were being dissected with microscopic precision. Tongues removed from deep inside the throat. Reproductive organs extracted cleanly, without disturbing surrounding tissue. Eyes carved out with no tearing of the eyelids. All of it done without bleeding. How? Some suggested scalpels, but field tests showed scalpel cuts under magnification were jagged full of human error. These cuts, perfectly smooth, almost like the tissue had evaporated. Others blamed scavengers, but autopsies proved otherwise. Scavengers tear, they chew, they don't cauterize, they don't use heat, they don't make symmetrical incisions. So what does? What tool can cut flesh like that? Remove organs without damage? Seal blood vessels instantly? Only one answer keeps surfacing: laser-like technology. But even lasers today can't perform what was found in those eerie cases. Not with that control. Not in the middle of nowhere, without electricity or assistance. Unless it wasn't human technology. Let's look closer. In 1974, a case in Nebraska made headlines. A 900-pound bull found dead, genitals removed, rectum cored out, eyelids sliced, tongue missing. Every cut was smooth, symmetrical, and sterile. No infection, no blood, no tracks. The veterinarian who examined the corpse said, "These are not the wounds of a knife. They're too clean, too exact." It's as if the tissue was vaporized. The phrase comes up again and again. Vaporized. Could some kind of beam, electromagnetic, ultrasonic, or otherwise, have been used? One that burns and cuts at the same time. One that leaves no mess. One we still don't fully understand. Now consider this. Multiple ranchers have reported seeing beams of light shining down from silent crafts just before discovering mutilated animals. Thin beams, focused, controlled, directed at the animals. Not lightning, not floodlights. Something else, something targeted. In one famous case at Utah, 1996, a rancher reported a blue light descending from a hovering object over his pasture. He watched, frozen in fear, as the light moved across the herd. Seconds later, the light retracted. The craft vanished. The next morning, a mutilated cow, tongue missing, eyes gone, surgical cuts, no blood. It's as if the light itself did the cutting. Which brings us to a theory gaining traction among researchers: the laser harvest theory. A hypothesis that these mutilations are part of a non-human collection effort, that these animals are being selected, examined, harvested, using technologies far beyond ours. Think about it. Why always the same organs? Tongues, eyes, genitals, reproductive tissue, rectums. Soft, vascular-rich tissues, highly concentrated in DNA, hormones, and sensory data. Could it be that these organs serve a purpose? That something or someone is studying them, testing, creating, or replicating? And if this is true, why cattle? Why so many? Why so exact? Why leave the bodies behind? Some believe it's to test environmental contamination. Cows eat the grass, drink the water, live exposed. They absorb everything around them, which means their organs tell a story of Earth, of change, of us. Others say it's genetic, that certain breeds, bloodlines, or conditions are being sampled, scanned, cataloged by visitors. Visitors with tools we can't explain. Visitors who don't need to land, who can extract with light, with beams, with technology we only dream of. Remember, these incidents happen silently. No one hears anything. No engine, no buzzing, just a flash of light, then darkness, then a body that tells no story, that holds no blood, that shows no struggle, only a message carved into the skin. We were here. So, what do we do with this? What do we call wounds that can't be made by knives, that leave no blade marks, that remove tissue perfectly? What do we call floating lights that slice flesh without touching it? What do we say about farmers who watch this happen and are told to stay silent? If this is just hysteria, how do you explain the precision? If this is just predators, how do you explain the incisions? If this is just humans, why haven't we seen the tool, the craft, the team? Because maybe it's not human at all. In the next part, we look beyond the fields, beyond the bloodless bodies. We dive into ancient history, because the truth might be older than we think, older than the US government, older than modern science, older than our species. What if these mutilations aren't new? The UFO harvest theory, what are they collecting? Why always the same organs? Why only the eyes, the tongue, the genitals, the liver? Why not the meat? Why not the bones? Why such specific precision? These aren't random mutilations. They're selections. They're harvests. But harvests of what? Meat? No. Blood? Sometimes, but always gone. So what remains? Data, information, code. More than 10,000 mutilated animals, most with identical missing organs. And every time, the same question is whispered. What are they trying to learn? Let's examine the pattern. Again and again, the same parts are taken. Eyes packed with neural tissue, direct link to brain activity and perception. Tongue saturated with blood vessels, nerves, and genetic identifiers. Genitals and reproductive organs loaded with hormones, DNA and reproductive coding. Liver, a biological filter, rich in data on toxins, drugs, and environmental contaminants. Rectum, often removed with surgical precision, rich in microbiome data, digestion, and internal absorption clues. Coincidence or targeted sampling? Let's dive into the theory that's shaking researchers to the core, the UFO harvest theory. It suggests this is not just an experiment, not just monitoring, but a global biological data collection project, conducted by someone or something not human. What if the mutilated animals are part of an alien research protocol, a planetary lab test, and Earth is the test tube? Here's how it works. Cattle live outdoors. They drink the water, eat the grass, breathe the air. Their organs reflect everything in their environment. If the air changes, if radiation rises, if pollution increases, their organs know. So, what if someone wanted to monitor Earth silently, not by satellite, but by biological proxy? They wouldn't need to abduct people, just the cows, the livers, the lungs, the glands. Then analyze the data, read the chemical stories inside. Some believe this is a toxicity scan. They're watching how Earth is changing, tracking poisons, radiation, viral shifts, checking how deep the damage goes, and if we, the dominant species, can survive. Others think it's genetic harvesting, that the aliens are collecting DNA, not to study us, but to use us, for cloning, for hybridization, for preserving species, or for building something new. Think about it. Every year, millions of DNA samples are gathered in human labs from wildlife, people, oceans, for databases, for research, for control. Wouldn't an advanced civilization do the same? But with one difference. They don't need permission. They don't need funding. They don't need to explain themselves. They just come, take what they need, leave the rest. That's why the organs are missing. That's why there's no blood. That's why there's no mess, no noise, no signs of struggle, just absence. Now let's go deeper. Why those organs? Why reproductive parts? Because reproduction is code, genetic blueprints, information on how a species continues. If someone wanted to learn how we're made, how we evolve, how we mutate. They'd study our reproductive cells. And not just humans, but mammals, farm animals, biologically tied to us for thousands of years. And the eyes, because the eyes are not just sensory tools. They're neural tissue, a part of the brain pushed outward. They reveal how a creature sees and maybe how it thinks. In 2002, a vet in Argentina dissected a mutilated cow and found the optic nerve had been removed with laser-like precision, no hemorrhaging, as if it was extracted without any pressure. Could this be a scan of perception, of sight, of biological design? Then there's the tongue, loaded with blood, bacteria, tissue, a molecular database in muscle form. Some researchers believe it's a shortcut to identifying internal diseases. And the liver, it filters everything. Toxins, metals, viruses, chemicals. Take a liver, run a scan, and you know what's in the water, what's in the air, what humans are injecting into their food. It's not a stretch to believe. The organs are not trophies. They're data packets, collected, filed, studied. But why the extreme secrecy? Why the missing footage? Why the erased evidence? Because if this theory is true, then Earth is under observation. And we're not just the observers. We're the subjects. The mutilations aren't crimes. They're extractions. Silent, efficient, cold. Like a scientist pegging a bird, swabbing DNA, taking blood, then releasing it or not. Only we don't get released. We're left with empty fields, silent nights, and questions we can't answer. The theory becomes darker when you add this. What if these aren't just samples? What if they're prototypes? Biological building blocks for something else? A hybrid, an artificial being, a clone, a virus. Many mutilation sites show interference. Phones fail, watches stop, batteries die. What kind of tech does that? Something nuclear, something extraterrestrial, or something we're not supposed to see. And then there's the silence. The government silence. No agency wants to touch this. Not the military, not the FBI, not NASA. Why? Because if it's true, they can't stop it, and they can't protect you from it. So they deny, ignore, redirect. But the cattle keep dying. The organs keep vanishing. The beams of light keep returning. And the question remains, what are they harvesting? And more importantly, what are they building? Is it just science, or survival, or conquest, or creation? In the next part, we dig into what ancient cultures might have already known. Because this pattern, it's not new. It's thousands of years old. And maybe we were warned. The military connection shadows behind the fence. Who arrives before the sun? Who flies with no insignia? Who watches from behind tinted windows, but never speaks? Black helicopters and marked trucks. Men in uniforms, but with no name tags. Seen again and again. Always near mutilation sites. Always just before or just after. Coincidence? Or something more? Across America, from Montana to New Mexico, witnesses keep saying the same thing. We saw a black chopper hovering above the ranch. There were military trucks parked just off the main road, no license plates. A man in a dark uniform asked questions, then told me to forget what I saw. Why is the military always nearby? Let's go back. 1970s. Colorado. One of the worst years for cattle mutilations in history. Dozens of cases in just a few months. Farmers were terrified. Veterinarians baffled. Law enforcement overwhelmed. And then, military helicopters appeared. Local papers reported low-flying choppers over ranches in the San Luis Valley. No explanation. No markings, no flight plans, and just days later, more mutilated animals. Same pattern, same wounds. Rancher Linda Moulton Howe, who investigated hundreds of these cases, documented dozens of eyewitness testimonies linking unmarked helicopters to the mutilations. They would circle for hours, then vanish. Next morning, dead cattle. She asked, are they observing the phenomenon or are they involved in it? That's the chilling question. What is the military's role? Are they watching aliens? Or covering for them? Or doing the work themselves? It gets darker. 1993, Northern Nevada. A rancher reported mutilated cattle. Sheriff responded. While inspecting the site, they noticed tire tracks in the dirt. But not just any tracks. Heavy, military-grade tire treads. No rancher owns those. And just past the hill, an unmarked Humvee engine still warm, but no driver in sight. The area had no nearby base, no active training exercises. So, what was the vehicle doing there? And why disappear? In 1980, in Dulce, New Mexico, dozens of cattle mutilations were recorded over 6 weeks. Locals began setting up watch groups. One night, they spotted a black helicopter. Armed ranchers aimed rifles, but the craft simply hovered, then moved off at high speed. No response to radio calls. No military report filed. Later, a local deputy saw men in black tactical gear taking soil samples near a mutilation site. When he approached, they flashed a government badge, but wouldn't say from where. They left within minutes. What kind of operation was that? Soil sampling? Near a dead animal? In total secrecy. And then there's the story of Paul Benowitz, an electronics expert who lived near Kirtland Air Force Base. In the 1980s, he began recording strange signals and lights over nearby ranches. He was convinced it was alien activity. He took his evidence to the Air Force. And what happened? He was discredited, gaslight, and intimidated. He later suffered a breakdown. Documents later suggested Benowitz was right at least partially, and that his theories came too close to the truth. So, here's the theory, one that keeps coming up, that the military is not just watching alien encounters. They're managing them, or even collaborating. Let's break it down. 3 key patterns. Helicopters appear hours before mutilations. Unmarked vehicles are seen surveilling ranches. Witnesses are intimidated by men who look and act military. What does that suggest? An operation? A protocol? Maybe a containment program? Is the U.S. military trying to clean up after alien activity? Or control it? Or replicate it? Let's not forget, in 2017, the Pentagon admitted to funding a TIPA secret UFO investigation. Millions spent, dozens of encounters analyzed, and the conclusion: these crafts are not ours, but someone was monitoring them, following them, and collecting data, including on animal mutilation cases. There are theories that the military is collecting tissue samples too, that they've reverse-engineered alien technology, or that they're running parallel experiments. A shocking 1997 document obtained under FOIA showed this unexplained animal excision phenomenon noted in regions with overlapping low-altitude military flight paths. Recommend coordinated observation protocols. Translation: they know where this is happening, and they're watching it closely. But here's the twist. Some think it's not about aliens at all, that the government is using alien stories as a smokescreen to test biological weapons, to experiment on radiation effects, to track environmental contamination in secret. If a cow dies from experimental tech, call it aliens. If a rancher sees something strange, blame the stars. Plausible deniability. Control the narrative. Keep the public confused. So, which is worse? That aliens are behind the mutilations, or that humans are and hiding behind an alien myth? Either way, one thing is certain. The military knows. They are always close, and they never talk. Are they protecting us? Or watching us? Are they scared? Or complicit? Even former military whistleblowers have raised alarms. In 2023, a retired intelligence officer said this under oath. There are recovery programs, not just of craft but of biological material. He didn't specify what kind, but his message was clear. The public is being kept in the dark. So, what happens next? When the cattle keep dying, when the helicopters keep circling, when the files stay sealed, we keep asking, we keep watching, we keep connecting the dots, because someone is lying, and the truth is circling overhead. In the next chapter, we look deeper into ancient legends, because long before the helicopters, before the ranches, there were myths, stories of sky gods, of creatures descending in the night, of animals drained of life. And maybe, just maybe, we were warned long ago. Ancient cattle rituals, blood rites, and forgotten technology. This isn't the first time animals were sacrificed. This isn't the first time blood disappeared beneath the stars. And maybe this isn't just about science. What if it's ritual? What if it's been happening for thousands of years? What if the cattle mutilations of today are echoes of something ancient, something we once called sacrifice, and now call alien? Let's look back, long before black helicopters, before classified reports, before lasers and lab coats. There were temples, and there was blood. In ancient Egypt, bulls were sacred, worshipped, feared, and often offered. The god Apis was symbolized by a live bull, fed, pampered, and ritually sacrificed in elaborate ceremonies. But here's the strange part. Some Egyptian texts describe bulls ascending into the heavens after death, not buried, taken. In the highlands of Tibet, ancient Bon rituals involved offering the genitals, blood, and tongues of cattle to sky spirits. Sound familiar? The same organs, the same parts, removed with purpose. The Maya practiced bloodletting rituals with animals, cows, goats, jaguars. They believed the blood opened a portal, a stargate between earth and the heavens. One Maya codex speaks of sky beings who descended in fire to collect blood for knowledge. And other mentions, the tongue is the bridge. Through it, the sky gods speak. Is that just mythology or memory? The Inca Empire sacrificed llamas at high altitudes, but only the healthiest, only those with perfect symmetry, selected with care. Then organs removed, blood poured onto altars made of stone and metal, then burned or simply left. Why? To feed the beings above, over and over again, across continents, across time. Different cultures, same sacrifice, same body parts, and the same silent question. Who or what were they offering them to? Some archaeologists dismiss this, call it religion, superstition, ceremony. But others aren't so sure, because the similarities are too perfect. Cattle, precise removal of organs, no evidence of predators, offerings to the sky. Sound familiar? It's exactly what we see in mutilation cases today. So, here's the theory, one that merges the paranormal with the historical. The ancient alien theory, made famous by thinkers like Erich von Däniken. The theory suggests beings from other worlds visited Earth in ancient times. They were seen as gods, worshipped as bringers of fire, wisdom, and flight. They asked for sacrifice, for blood, for parts. But what if they didn't ask? What if they harvested then and now? Maybe these rituals weren't spiritual. Maybe they were transactional. You give us blood and we give you something in return. Knowledge, tools, protection. Or maybe the rituals were just our way of coping, trying to give meaning to what we couldn't explain, trying to make peace with the visitors, with their machines, with their light. Look at the Nazca lines in Peru. Massive geometric figures carved into the desert, visible only from the sky. Animals, shapes, astronaut-like beings. Why make something that can only be seen from above? Who were they for? What were they guiding down? And many of those lines lead to altars, sacrificial stones, some with grooves, to drain blood, to channel energy. It wasn't just about death. It was about connection. Even today, some tribes in Africa and South America report sky spirits coming to take animals. Elders say, "We used to leave offerings. Now they take what they want." Are these just myths? Or memories? Now, here's something chilling. In a few rare modern mutilation cases, farmers have found symbols burned into the ground. Circular marks, geometric patterns, no tire tracks, no footprints, just shapes scorched into the earth next to a bloodless animal. Ancient crop circle, or modern landing site. Are these the same beings? Have they been here all along? Some believe the cuts, the incisions on mutilated cattle are not new. They match patterns found in ancient carvings, petroglyphs, etchings in stone. One carving in the Utah desert shows a figure holding a cow upside down, with beams of light from its hands. No head, no genitals, the same parts missing. Coincidence or documentation? Let's ask a harder question. What if the technology used in today's mutilations, the laser-like incisions, the bloodless removal, isn't futuristic, but ancient? What if the aliens we fear are the gods our ancestors worshipped? And what if the rituals weren't primitive, but learned, taught, a forgotten agreement, a long-lost trade, blood for peace, organs for protection? And when the sacrifices stopped, did the harvests begin? That would explain why the phenomena reappeared in the 20th century, why mutilations surged in the 1960s, just as modern society turned away from ritual, away from sacrifice. What if we broke the deal, and now they come on their own? Today's farmers don't worship, they don't offer, but the cattle still die, the organs still vanish, the sky still glows. Maybe it was never about worship, it was about balance. We took from the earth, they took from us. But now, no rituals, no offerings, just black helicopters, just fear. So ask yourself, are today's mutilations a science experiment, or a ritual resurrected, a forgotten technology, or a cosmic debt coming due? In the next chapter, we explore who is being silenced and why. Because there are those who try to speak, whistleblowers, witnesses, insiders, and their voices are being erased. Maybe they know something too dangerous, or maybe they were part of it, silencing the truth. Why are witnesses disappearing? They saw something, they spoke up, and then they vanished. Not all at once, not loudly, but one by one. Quiet, systematic, erased. Why? Why do those who talk about cattle mutilations, UFOs, government secrets, always seem to end in tragedy? Is it fear, or cover-up, or something worse? Take the case of Dr. John Altshuler, a respected hematologist from Denver. In 1970, he was called in by law enforcement to examine a mutilated cow. What he found shocked him. The tissue was burned at the edges, not torn. No bleeding, no blood anywhere. The heart was removed, yet the surrounding vessels were untouched. I had never seen anything like it, he told a few colleagues. Then he stopped talking. In a 1994 interview, Dr. Achular said, "I was visited by two men. They said I should stop asking questions. One of them showed me pictures of my daughter at school. He never spoke publicly again." What kind of science demands silence? In 1982, rancher Gabe Valdez in Dulce, New Mexico, investigated over 2 dozen cattle mutilations on his land. He found tripod footprints near the corpses, strange gas mask filters. One cow had a fetus removed without any incision on the outside. This wasn't a predator, he said. It was something advanced. Then came the calls. Strange clicks on his phone. And marked vans parked across his house. He reported them. Nothing happened. One night, he came home to find his files all gone. Drawers pulled out, but no sign of forced entry. Only one thing left, a cassette tape, recorded static. Who wanted to erase his data? And why leave a warning? And then there's Phil Schneider, a geologist, a former government contractor. He claimed to work on underground military bases, including one in Dawes. According to him, I saw beings that were not human. I witnessed mutilated cattle and human remains stored for biological testing. He gave lectures, showed scars, held up metal fragments he claimed came from alien tech. He said he'd be killed for speaking. He was found dead in 1996. Official cause, suicide, but friends and family pointed out his fingernails were missing. His throat was crushed from the outside. His notes and equipment were gone. Too much truth, or too much fear. Even Linda Moulton Howe, one of the most respected investigators of animal mutilations, said this. There are files the public will never see. People who have been silenced, agencies that know far more. In one interview, she described a source from the Air Force who told her, "We've been monitoring non-terrestrial collection operations for decades, and we can't stop them." She asked why no one warned the public. He answered, "Panic. We're not in control. That's the part they'll never admit. Control. That's the real reason for the silence. If people knew the truth that someone or something is harvesting life on Earth, and we can't stop it, what happens to society, to religion, to order? So instead, we hide it, erase them. And not just individuals. Entire investigations disappear. In 1975, a joint operation between FBI and local sheriffs documented hundreds of mutilation cases across the Midwest. Over 300 pages. Photos, autopsy reports, surveillance logs. The case was never closed, but the files, gone. FOIA requests return empty, redacted, erased. Why? One theory. The mutilations are connected to classified programs, biological testing, radiation exposure, drone surveillance, and the UFOs, the light beams, the strange burns, too real to explain. So they became urban myths, because it's easier to let people think it's aliens than admit it might be us, or something worse. One whistleblower, a former intelligence analyst under ATIP, wrote anonymously, "We catalog every incident, animal or human. We don't intervene. We just observe, because we are not the apex predator here." That line haunted readers. We are not the apex predator here. So maybe that's why witnesses vanish, not just to protect secrets, but because they're saying the unspeakable. That humans are not in control. That Earth is not ours alone. Others say it's not always death. Sometimes it's career destruction, discreditation, harassment, One vet who examined over 40 mutilated animals found traces of radiation in the remains. He submitted his findings to a national science journal. The next month, he lost his funding. His lab was shut down. He now works in a small-town clinic and never talks to reporters. Coincidence or consequence? Even journalists aren't safe. One investigative reporter in Argentina uncovered military correspondence linking Air Force flights to mutilation events. She published a partial report, then disappeared for 3 months. When she returned, she had moved, quit journalism, refused to speak. She never said what happened, only whispered once to a colleague, "You don't want to see what's in those planes. Who's watching the watchers? Who's silencing the truth?" There's one more layer, more chilling than all the rest. Some believe it's not the government silencing witnesses. It's something else. That the technology used in these mutilations, the laser-like cuts, the interference, the invisible craft, also includes mind suppression, memory erasure, behavior control. Call it conspiracy, call it science fiction. But then explain this. Why do so many witnesses recant? Why do they suddenly deny what they said? One rancher gave 4 interviews about a mutilation on his land. He described lights, a humming noise, missing time. A week later, he said it was coyotes. His eyes empty, his tone robotic. Another woman in Brazil claimed to film a glowing craft over a mutilated cow. 2 days later, she said it was a dream. But the footage now missing was confirmed by 2 journalists who saw it firsthand. Who has the power to change memories, to edit minds, to delete truth? Maybe the cattle aren't the only ones being harvested. Maybe so is information. We think the danger is in the field, but maybe the real war is in the mind. Because if you forget what you saw, if no one believes what you said, if every truth is erased, twisted, or buried, then the silence wins. But some refuse to be silenced. They keep speaking, writing, risking everything to tell the story, to warn the world. Because this is more than cattle, more than UFOs. It's about control, about truth, and who gets to keep it. In the next part, we ask the ultimate question. What happens if this isn't just monitoring? What if the mutilations are preparations, a countdown, a harvest, or a test run? What comes next? And are we ready? The countdown theory, are we being prepared for something? What if this isn't random? What if the mutilations aren't just incidents? What if they're steps, a pattern, a sequence, a countdown? But counting to what? For decades, the animal mutilations have followed no logic. Different countries, different animals, different environments, but the same method, the same organs, the same silence. But what if there is a logic, a rhythm, a timeline, one we haven't yet understood? And when we do, it may already be too late. In 2009, a leaked internal memo from an Argentinian military intelligence unit revealed something chilling. A chart. It tracked mutilation events from 1967 to 2009. Not just dates and places, but intervals, the time between them. The numbers formed a curve, not random, not linear, but accelerating. What if the events are increasing? What if we are approaching something? A culmination, a global reset. Some call it the countdown theory, and it's gaining traction, even among former government insiders. They ask, what are the mutilators testing? Why the same organs, over and over again? Why the increase in frequency? Some think they're studying environmental contamination, using cows to monitor Earth's air, water, and soil. Are they testing for toxins, for diseases, for radiation exposure? Or, maybe, They're not testing Earth. They're testing us. Because what organs are always taken? Eyes for visual analysis, tongues for taste, sound, bacteria, genitals for reproduction, livers for toxin processing, blood for everything. It's not random. It's biological targeting. If you were an outside intelligence, watching a planet evolve, preparing for contact, or conquest, or cohabitation, what would you do? You'd study the dominant species. Quietly, you'd sample their ecosystems, track their genetic shifts, monitor their resistance to disease, watch how they respond. Cattle are perfect proxies, ubiquitous, easy to access, biologically similar. And humans, we notice but we forget. We record but we dismiss. We ask questions but we rarely act. Perfect conditions for a global test environment. Some researchers think the mutilations are a form of calibration, tuning, adjusting for something that's coming. A virus, a genetic shift, a hybridization. Think that's too far? Then look at Project Serpo, a supposed secret exchange program between the U.S. government and extraterrestrials. Documents describe how a small team of humans traveled to another planet, and how that planet's atmosphere was similar, but not identical. The adjustment, genetic, chemical, environmental. What if the same is happening in reverse? Here, now, on Earth, and the cows. They're not victims. They're data points for a species preparing to arrive, or already here. In 2021, a report by UAP Task Force noted increased animal mutilations near U.S. nuclear sites. Coincidence? Or a connection? Why would UFOs, mutilations, and nuclear facilities all align? Unless they're tracking how nuclear energy affects organic life, planning for sustainability or survivability. Let's go darker. What if the mutilations are harvesting specific proteins, or extracting antibodies, or even preparing a biocompatibility model for a new species? Are they crafting a formula, tuning their presence, blending their biology with ours? The phrase invasion sounds dramatic, but what if it's not an invasion? What if it's integration? Slow, silent, strategic. Some believe the mutilations are a countdown to mass appearance, that when the biological map is complete, they arrive, not in ships, not in fire, but in bodies that can survive here, breathe here, reproduce here, and some even think they already have. The increase in cattle mutilations isn't just about animals, it's about timing. Every major wave of mutilations in history follows other anomalies. The 1970s wave followed Roswell declassifications. The 1990s wave followed Area 51 leaks. The 2010s wave followed UAP confirmations. Now, we're in the 2020s. Disclosure is happening. Governments are admitting they don't control the skies, but they still say nothing about the ground, about what's happening to the animals, because the ground is where the real story is, where the blood disappears, where the technology leaves no trace, where the countdown ticks unseen. There's a chilling report from Brazil. A mutilated cow was found with a small metallic disc embedded behind its eye socket. It was emitting low-frequency pulses. The disc disappeared before independent investigators could examine it. Who took it? And what was it measuring? Could these animals be monitored after death? Are we watching them? Or are they watching us through them? One man claimed he cracked part of the timeline. An amateur researcher in Oregon. He built a database of 3,000 mutilation cases, plotted by time, type, and location. What he saw horrified him. The map wasn't random. It was concentric. spiraling outward, like a signal expanding. From where? From somewhere in New Mexico, near a site long rumored to house an underground facility. What if that's the epicenter, the control point, or the gate? If the countdown ends there, what begins? And here's the last terrifying thought. What if it's not just animals? What if the final stage is us? Because if you can do that to a cow, without blood, without noise, without being seen, then what can you do to a human? And would we even know? One rancher said it best. They don't need to attack us. They're preparing us, one cut at a time. So we ask again, are we being watched, harvested, trained, or worse, replaced? In the final chapter, we'll face the hardest question of all. What happens after the countdown ends? When the sky opens, and the blood isn't just from animals anymore? Are we too late, or just in time to understand? What are they hiding? The truth buried beneath the blood. Thousands of animals, thousands of mutilations, and not a single conviction, not one arrest, not one public trial, not even one official explanation. Why? Why are governments silent? Why do the reports vanish? Why do the scientists go missing? Why do the witnesses change their stories? From Colorado to Argentina, from 1967 to 2025, it's always the same. No blood, no tracks, no predators, no answers. Only fear, only silence. We began this journey in part 1. The bloodless bodies, left like puzzles in the grass, lifeless, drained, precise. By part 2, we saw how it started. The first recorded case, Snippy the horse, 1967. No blood, no trauma, no one held accountable. FBI stepped out. Part 3 showed us the scale. Over 10,000 animals across continents. Different species, same method, same surgical precision, same void of logic. In part 4, we walked the sites ourselves. Blood missing, tracks absent, predators ruled out, science defeated. Then came the witnesses in part 5. They saw it, they filmed it, they testified, but their stories were buried or erased. Lights in the sky, crafts with no sound, and then dead animals. Part 6 uncovered the government's role. Project Blue Book, Project Grudge. They knew, they documented, but they didn't protect us. They covered it up. Why? To avoid panic, or because they're part of it. Then came part 7, the laser cuts. Beyond anything our tech could do in the 60s, or even now. Even veterinarians were baffled. Not a knife, not a predator, something else. Part 8 brought the chilling hypothesis. The harvest theory. Organs removed weren't random. They were targeted. Hormonal, genetic, reproductive. Was it scientific study, or genetic farming? By part 9, the military connection was too hard to ignore. Unmarked helicopters, silent black SUVs. Activity always followed the deaths, sometimes preceded them. Was the CIA monitoring aliens, or working with them? Then came the ancient link in part 10. Blood rituals in Egypt, Maya, Tibet. Same organs, same cuts, same offerings to the sky. Are we repeating history, or are they repeating us? Part 11 turned the lights off. Witnesses disappeared. Whistleblowers silenced. Photos vanished. Truth buried, or worse, deleted from minds. Part 12, the countdown theory. Events accelerating. Cases increasing. As if building to something. A phase. A shift. A replacement. And now here we are. The final question. What are they hiding? Let's say this plainly. This isn't just about cattle. It never was. This is about control. of truth, of biology, of Earth. We've been told these mutilations are unexplainable, but we've seen the patterns. We've followed the data. We've heard the screams behind the silence. What if it's all connected? What if these mutilations, these sightings, these disappearances are part of a deal, a contract signed not by the people, but above them, by governments, by shadow programs, by forces we'll never vote for but always live under? Could it be that alien life made contact? Not in Roswell, not in Hollywood, but quietly, over pastures, over blood, over animals. And in exchange, they take what they want, and governments get what? Technology, power, protection, or silence. What if we are not the dominant species on Earth? Not anymore. Think about it. We've mapped the ocean floor. We've tracked every species on land. We've cataloged diseases down to genomes. But we can't explain why thousands of animals are found cut, drained, dissected. Really? Or maybe we can explain it. We're just not allowed to. There's one last theory, the darkest one. What if we are the experiment? Not the cows, not the horses. US, humans. Maybe the mutilations are step one, the beta test, to learn our biochemistry, to perfect the instruments. And when it's ready, it scales up. They've already learned how to erase blood, how to make cuts with no trace, how to enter, take, and vanish without being seen. What stops them from doing it to people? Some say they already have. They point to cases of missing persons in national parks, bodies returned in impossible conditions. No blood, no trauma, just missing time. They whisper, it started with cause, it ends with us. So, what are they hiding? Maybe everything, maybe nothing, maybe it's all in plain sight. The blood, the lights, the silence, and still no answers. Only questions. Maybe that's the point. To keep us asking, to keep us guessing, to keep us afraid, because when fear replaces facts, control replaces freedom. But you've read the journey. You've followed the trail, from bloodless corpses to government files, from ancient myths to modern science, from lasers in the night to helicopters in the dark. So now ask yourself, what do you believe? Was it aliens, a black budget program, a centuries-old ritual, or something we can't yet name? And more importantly, what happens next? The animals were the message, the mutilations the warning, the silence the signal. Now we wait for the truth, for the reveal, for the final harvest. Because this story doesn't end here. It's just beginning. And the next chapter may not be written by humans,